Hare Krishna. Good morning, dear devotees from Sri Jagannath Puri Dham. My name is Madhavananda Das, and these are our adventures in Srimad Bhagavatam. We're continuing with our series that probably I should hook up the microphone first. I'm sorry. Good morning, dear devotees. My name is Madhavananda Das, and we're live streaming from Sri Jagannath Puri Dham. These are our adventures in Srimad Bhagavatam. This is our session number 85 in a series that we're calling Meeting in Kurukshetra. And today we're going to speak something more from the 47th chapter of the 10th canto, which is the BHRAMARA-GITA. And we've been speaking, this is our 39th session on that. So I want to welcome everybody. And I'd like to encourage everyone at the end, if you have any reflections, if you have any thoughts you'd like to share about what we're speaking, or any questions or anything, please go ahead and share those with us. We'd like to hear that. We'll go ahead and say a few prayers to begin though. Narayanam namaskrityam naramschaiva narotamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayam udirayat Vede Ramayanesh Chaiva Purane Bharate Tata Adavante Chamadye Chahari Sarvatra Giyate Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shigurum Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Paramananda He Madhava Padunga Luchi Makaranda Se Makaranda Panakori Anande Bolo Hari Hari Harinka Name Vandavela Parikori Be Chakadola Se chakadolanka paraye manamo rahu nirantare manamo nirantare rahu ha Krishna boli jiva jao ha Krishna boli jao jiva moteu dada radha dava Moteu dada radha dava Moteu dada radha dava Dharma projita kaita vocha paramonya matsranam satam Vedyam vastavamatta vastu shivadam tapatrayon mulanam Shrimad Bhagavate Mahamune Krite Kim va parayeshvara Sadyo hridyavarujyate chakritibishu shubhistakshanat Nigama pataro galitam phalam shukamukadamitra dravasam yutam Pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam mohuraho rasika bhuvi bhavuka Anayato pasamam sakshat bhakti yogam adhoksaje Lokasya janato vidvams chakre satvata samhitam Yasham vaishayamanayam Krishne paramapurushe Bhaktirupadyate pumsa shokamoha bhayapaha Shrimad Bhagavatam Puranamamalam Yad Vaishnavanam Priyam Yasmin Paramaham Samekam Amalam Gyanam Padam Giyate Tatra Gyana Vairagya Bhakti Sahitam Naiskamyama Vishkritam Touchchan Van Supaten Vicharana Paro Bhaktyavimuchan Naraha Arto Yam Brahma Sutranam Bharatarta Vinirnaya Gayatri Basharupo So Vedata Paribrimitaha Sarva Vedeti Hasanam Sadam Sadam Samudritam Sarva Vedanta Sadam Hi Srimad Bhagavatam Ishyate Tadrasamrita Tripta Shyanan Yatra Svedvachi Kuchit Krishna Bhakti Rasa Swarup Shri Bhagavatam Tatevi Ativi Shastrahoite Paramamahatva Chadi Veda Upanishade Jata Kichu Hoya Tara Arta Glanavyasa Korila Sanchaya Jai Sutre Jai Ruk Vishaya Bachana Bhagavate Seruk Slokani Bandhana Jivera Nistara Lagi Sutra Koila Obhyasa Mayavadi Bhashishunile Hoya Sarvanasha Jao Bhagavata Pada Vaishnavira Stane Ekanta Shaikoro Chaitanya Charane Bhagavata Jainamane Sejavana Sama Tada Sasta Ache Janme Janme Prabhu Jama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Good morning, dear devotees from Sri Jagannath Puri Dham. My name is Madhavananda Das. So this is our series we're calling Meeting in Kuruksetra, and we're on session number 85 today. As Krishna Chaitanya Maharaj commented to me some time back, he said, you're inching your way along to the meeting in Kurukshetra. We're still in Vrindavan, and we're hearing from the 47th chapter, the 10th canto of the BHRAMARA-GITA. So I just want to offer my pranams for my spiritual master. Gauragraganya gana gotra goloruharam Gauranga gudatama gopyara kopa briksham Gopala gada ratidam yati singha gora Govinda deshi kavaram satatam namami Artaika sadanam krishnam Artan brajajanam shatan Tam chatasvasakam bhaktam archa vande durasaya Artaika saranam krishnam. This is a prayer Jiva Goswami offers to Uddhava. He says, with great sorrow, Artaika saranam krishnam, I'm taking shelter of Krishna, who's artan brajajanam shatan. He's the only shelter for persons who are suffering. He's the only shelter for the suffering people of Braj. And tam chatasvasakam bhaktam artya vande durasaya. I offer my vandana to Uddhava, who relieved the suffering of those residents of Vrindavan. So today I want to try to cover a few verses, text number 33 to 35 of the 47th chapter, the 10th canto. These are still Krishna's message to the gopis, which Uddhava is relating to the gopis. As Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur commented, when Uddhava began, he said, Sri Bhagavanu Vacha. Krishna says, and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Sa'artha Darshani commentary explained that Uddhava did that because he thought, I don't understand what Krishna is saying to the gopis here. It just doesn't make sense to me. So therefore he said, Sri Bhagavanu Vacha. This is what Krishna said. I can't understand it. And one of our foundational points that we want to review again and again It's from the 46th chapter, previous chapter, the 10th canto. When Krishna was in Mathura and Uddhava was leaving, and Krishna was telling him, Gachotava bhajam Somya, my dear Somya, my dear very gentle Uddhava, this is your qualification. You're not a very angry person trying to chastise everyone, but you're Somya, you're very gentle. I want pitro na pritim avaha, I want you to go and give some message, some satisfaction, some message of love to Pitro, to my parents, to Gopinam, to the gopis of Vrindavan, who are madhviyogabdim. They're feeling so much separation from me. And he said, Mat sandai shai vimochaya. Vimochaya, you go, you relieve them. And he says, Mat sandeshai. Sandeshai means that you give this message. But sandeshai, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur marks it. He says, this is plural. In other words, Krishna's telling Uddhava, you should speak it again, and you should speak it again, and you should speak it again. And as we've been hearing in our previous sessions, as Uddhava is speaking this over and over again to the gopis are seeing it new and different ways. And it's very, very astonishing for them. So let's go on to our text today. Krishna's continuing his message to the gopis. Text number 33, he says, Etadanta samanyayo yoga sankyam manishinam tyagastaputama satyam samudranta hivabakaha. According to intelligent authorities, this is the ultimate conclusion of all the Vedas, as well as the practice of yoga, sankhya, renunciation, austerity, sense control, and truthfulness, just as the sea is the ultimate destination of all rivers. Text 34. Yatvaham bhavatinam vai durevarte priyodrisam manasa sanikarshartam madanudhyana kamyaya. But Krishna says, but the actual reason why I, the beloved object of your sight, have stayed far away from you is that I wanted to intensify your meditation upon me and thus draw your minds closer to me. Text 35. Yata durachare preshte mana avishavartate strinam chanatata chetaha sani krishte kshiragochare. When her lover is far away, a woman thinks of him more than when he's present before her. Gurave Gurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha. So here, Krishna is telling the gopis, Etad Anta. This is the conclusion, Samanayo, of all the different Vedic literatures. That this is what yoga and Sankhya means. This is meditation. This is a standard of yoga. It means that one should control the senses. So here, basically, Krishna's telling the gopis that all the Vedic literature, the purpose of the Vedic literature is ultimately to bring the soul to the point of controlling the mind and senses and fixing them in self-realization. And all these different processes of yoga and mysticism and religion that involve unrestricted sense gratification, they're not actually really spiritual processes. But really what they really are is just convenient ways for people who are very foolish to try to justify their animal-like behavior. The Narada Pancharatra is a beautiful verse which describes Aradito yadi hadis tapasatata kim. Aradito yadi hadis, yadi means if. Aradito yadi hadis tapasatata kim. If you're worshipping Krishna, tapasatata kim. What's the benefit? What's the point then of performing austerity? And then it goes on to say, Naradito yadi hadis tapasatata kim. The verse is exactly the same, the first two lines, only the first line begins aradito, and the second line is naradito. So he says, the first line says, if you're worshiping Krishna, what's the necessity of doing all these austerities and things? And nararito yadiharis tapasa tatakim. And if you're not worshiping Krishna, then what's the use of all these tapasya and austerities? It's just a waste of time. So many devotees, we thought in the beginning years that really advancement means somebody who doesn't sleep very much, or someone who doesn't eat very much. And that's the standard. But as we progress in bhakti further, we come to understand that it's not so simplistic. And as we like to comment, that Garuda is a non-vegetarian Vaishnav. He's not following that regulator principle, but he's an eternal associate of the Lord. According to the Sri Sampradaya, he's a partial manifestation of the Lord. So Krishna's saying here two things, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. There's two meanings of this verse, this first verse here. Krishna's saying that etad andasamanayo yoga sankhya manisinam chagistaputama satyam samudranta ivabagaha. The first meaning is that the control of the mind, etad anta, this is a conclusion, samanayo, sampurno, of all the Vedic literatures. And this is sufficient to make one successful in life. And this Astanga Yoga, this process of Sankhya, where you're understanding neti, this is something transcendental, this is not something transcendental. This process of renunciation, of sannyas, of tyag, and following your particular dharma, your swadharma, subduing your senses, these are all different methods, but Vishnu says, that Krishna's telling the gopis, that they all go to the same place to control the mind. That's the purpose of all of them. But naturally, if someone practices Krishna bhakti, then the mind becomes controlled. So this is one meaning that Krishna is saying this, but there's an internal meaning also. On one hand, as we've been speaking, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and our acharyas explain that Krishna is cheating certain people who have faith in gyan. So he's saying, yes, there's some gyan here, here's some yoga here, this is very, very important. But in actuality, that's not so important. Krishna finishes the Bhagavad Gita very emphatically by saying, Sarva dharman parityaga mamekam saranam braja. That give up religion. What is all this religion? And he doesn't say sarva papa parityaga, give up all kinds of sin. Rather, he says that if you give up religion, then I'll protect you from sin. So there's so many people who want to practice religion. They want to practice some sankhya. They want to practice renunciation, some types of austerity. They want to practice this dhamma, sense control. They want to practice satyam, being honest. I think this is very, very important. But Krishna says all those things, they're external. He's telling this to the gopis. At the same time, he's saying for outside people, this is very good, you do this. But for the gopis, he's saying that just as somebody transcends material existence by controlling the mind, similarly, you can overcome the pain of separation from me by mind control. Krishna's acknowledging the suffering, the separation that the gopis are feeling. And Krishna's going on to tell them, Vishwanath says, that it's the uncontrolled mind that makes you think that your association with me, when you see some spurti or something, that it's illusion, but it's actually real. And then the next verse we'll go on to. Yatvaham bhavatinam vai dhurevate priyodrisam manasasani karshartam aranudhyana kamyaya. But Krishna says, but yet too, the real fact is this, that the real reason why I disappeared from you is because manasa sanikarshartam. Manasa, the mind, sanikarsha artam. I wanted to attract your mind to me. That was my purpose. Kamyaya, that was my desire. This is why, the real reason, Krishna says, why I left Vrindavan. and went to Mathura. Because sometimes something which may be right in front of us is very far away from us. Anybody who is a student in school can attest to that. Sometimes you're hearing from the teacher, the subject matter is right in front of you, but your mind is some distant place. And similarly, in the opposite sense, sometimes we're very far away from something, but our heart is closer to that thing. As it said, that absence makes the heart grow fonder. So although apparently, from what my Guru Maharaj would call apara-vichar, or the apparent consideration, Krishna is very, very far away from the gopis. But in tattva-vichar, in the absolute consideration, Krishna was actually bringing them closer to him. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in Sarita Darshani, on this particular verse, he says a very amazing thing. He says that there's like a conversation going on between the gopis and Krishna. And the gopis, they're hearing this and they're addressing Uddhava. And they said, look, Uddhava, what are you saying? You're telling all this, but all this news that you're giving, this message from Krishna, all that is doing, it's making our pain more and more intense. So what should we say about the person who's sending this message? What should we say about Krishna? He doesn't understand what is a proper time, what is a proper place, what is a proper person. Or maybe we should criticize you for being so thoughtless. You're bringing all this Brahma Gyan. It's a big, big burden. You're carrying this heavy load, and you're coming to Braj, Uddhava. Where are you going to sell your heavy load of Brahma Gyan, your philosophy here in Braj? We're the gopis of Vrindavan. And we're used to drinking the nectar of Krishna's lips and Krishna's beauty. And now you want to come to us and give us a nice big cup of bitter neem juice. This bitter neem juice of Brahma Gyan. What is that? They said it's better that the women of Braj then just give up their lives. Rather than take this abominable, nasty thing that you're offering to us as food. What is our food? Tava katamritam tapta jivanam. Our food is Krishna Katha. The gopis are the examples of those persons. Shada sabda visvaskai sudadinishchoy. They have firm faith that all we have to do is just hear about Krishna. They're not interested in anything else. They don't see any other solutions for anything else. And what is this you're doing, Uddhava? You're bringing this Brahma Gyan here? Better that we die than you're offering us such disgusting thing as our food. Better we die of starvation. And the gopis, they said, now listen, you great fool. Just listen to us. This Brahma Gyan, which is found in the leaf huts of the hearts of great saintly persons, it's okay. It's a medicinal herb that definitely can cure the disease of material existence. But can this herb cure the disease, the very terrible disease of Krishna Prem? Did those doctors, Uddhava, that you're hearing from, who's speaking to you about all this Brahma Gyan nonsense, did they ever research this disease, the disease of Krishna Prem? After learning the science of medicine from Sandapani Muni, Krishna, he's taught you this science, and now he's sent you to us with this herbal cure to try to relieve the fever, the intense fever of prema. Now, Uddhava, listen to us. You've said something to us. Now we have something to say to you. And we have something to say to your master. You be our messenger now, Uddhava. You take this medicine back to its sender. Tell him we're not interested in drinking that medicine. And now if your messenger goes, if you bring this medicine back to your messenger and he drinks that, then Krishna will extinguish his fever of prema for us. You make sure that there's no trace of that fever left in Krishna. In other words, that Krishna has no more love for us. But for us, may that great fever of prema, may it remain with us for hundreds and hundreds of births. And the gopis say then, and if you don't have such an herb with you, then what can be done? And they say if there's a heavy monsoon shower of rain that comes down, that might be able to extinguish some fire of lightning. And if we find within Krishna's message something that's a little favorable for us, we're trying to understand, is that Krishna's intention or is that just some accident? The gopis have become unmadana. They become mad. This is the nature of Krishna prema. It makes a person become mad. And the gopis in their madness now, they're hearing Uddhava speak Krishna's message, and they're trying to understand it. They're saying, oh, he said this the first time, Krishna's speaking Brahma-gyan. But now he said it a second time, and now we understand that actually what Krishna means is that he's speaking about our fire of separation. He's addressing us. He's understanding and recognizing our feelings. But is that just our mind? Is that just our imagination? Is that really Krishna's intention? We don't know. We can't put any faith in your Krishna. So the gopis are speaking in such an angry way like this to Uddhava. And then Uddhava replies, my dear ladies, please just listen for me for 1 minute with some attention. And Uddhava says, I have another letter here in my bag. I have another message, a separate from this Brahma-gyan. And then Uddhava again spoke Krishna's same message. And the gopis are hearing it with great eagerness and great faith. So the general meaning of what Krishna is saying is that I'm so attractive to your eyes. And I know, but I'm now situated far away from your eyes. So it's simply my desire, Krishna's telling the gopis, that I want to increase your meditation on me. And by that meditation, your minds are drawn to me. Therefore, now I'm very close to your minds. And Vishwanath says that there's another message which is implied. That Krishna's telling the gopis that you gopis are extremely attractive to my eyes. And because now you're very far away from my eyes, my dear gopis, you please remain close to my mind. And Krishna says, therefore, it's understood that when an object of attraction is very far away from the mind, even if it's in the vicinity of one's eyes and near the mind, it's not really close. So of the two, the mind is more important. Someone may be right in front of you, but you're looking at them and your mind is somewhere else. Therefore, Krishna says, I desire that you remain close to my mind. And Krishna says, maybe that be your desire as well. So we've commented sometimes that this was Krishna's purpose in driving Kaliya out of Braj. Kaliya is a great demon, but our acharyas repeatedly express that Kaliya is the example of someone who got such amazing mercy from Krishna. So much so that Sanatana Goswami, in his Brihad Bhagavatamrita, he says that Krishna, he danced on the heads of Kaliya, but he didn't dance alone. Krishna reached out his hand and he brought the gopis on top of the hoods of Kaliya. And they began to do a Ras Leela dance on the hoods of Kaliya. That's pretty good. Kaliya got so much mercy, he had Krishna's feet on his head. And that's a mercy that even the goddess of fortune doesn't get. She gets to massage Krishna's feet, but she doesn't get to put Krishna's feet on her head. But Kaliya got Krishna's feet on his head. And Kaliya not only got Krishna's feet on his head, but he got the feet of the gopis with Krishna when they were doing Ras Leela. That's a lot of mercy. But then Krishna told Kaliya, Chalo, get out, go away. So how do we accept that to be mercy? So in this verse, the verses that we're hearing today, We're understanding us something about that mercy, that Krishna says, if I really care about someone, then I leave them. I put them in separation so that their mind is always thinking of me. Just like Srila Prabhupada, he had Harikesh Prabhu as his personal servant. And Harikesh Prabhu was serving Srila Prabhupada with so much love and affection. But at one point, Prabhupada called for him and chastised him and told him, get out, go away. I don't want you around here. And Harikesh Prabhu cried and he left. And he went back to his place where he was doing a service in Europe. And a few months later, he returned to Srila Prabhupada with a stack of books that he just printed. And Prabhupada began to cry. And he told him that you were just rotting here in my personal service, in my association. And therefore I sent you away. And when I sent you away, you did more service. And so in a similar way, sometimes a spiritual master, he puts us in a situation of separation where the disciple can't see the Guru, and it's a test. It's not only a test, though, it's also a vehicle by which we can come closer to Guru. In the 32nd chapter, the 10th canto, in text 20, Krishna tells the gopis, after he disappeared from the Rasa Leela, he says, there's a reason why I left you. Naham tu sakyo bhajato pijantun bhajamyami sam anubritti brittaye yatadano labda dhane vinashte tachchinta yanyan nibito naveda. Krishna says to the gopis, Naham tu sakyo bhajato pijantun. There's a reason why I don't reciprocate right away with people who begin to worship me. Because I want to make their love much, much more intense. Yatadano labda dane vinaste. When they can't get me, or just like a poor man, a dana, someone who's very, very poor, if he gets some wealth, a very poor man, he has nothing, but he gets some wealth, and then he loses that wealth. Dane vinaste, he loses it within the tachchinchayan nibrito navida. He can't stop thinking about that. He's thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it always. If he was just a poor man and he never got any wealth, then it wouldn't mean anything to him. He wouldn't forget anything. But because he got that wealth and then he lost it, then he can't stop thinking about that. The example is given in the first canto of the Bhagavatam of Narad Muni in his previous life as a son of a maidservant. And in that lifetime, he had some brief spurti of Krishna. And he heard Krishna's voice, and saw Krishna for just one moment, and Krishna disappeared. But Narad Muni couldn't forget that. And he spent the rest of his life meditating on Krishna in great intense separation. Again, in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami explains the purpose of separation. Pratiyamana apyagyar gramyai sapari dukavat karunadya rasa pragyai prodhananandamaya mataha. He says that there's some people who are agya. They're completely ignorant. And these people, they think when they see the feelings of separation or the rasas, like karuna ras, which are full of grief, karuna rasai pragyai, those persons, they think sapadi dukkhavat, that this is great suffering. Why do I want to hear about this? Why do I want to read the 10th canto and hear about how the gopis are crying in separation from Krishna? This is very terrible. He says, but karuna rasa pragyai, those persons who are pragyai, who are knowledgeable in rasa, prodhananda moya mata, they understand that actually these rasas are full of great ecstasy, of great happiness and bliss. This is a very difficult thing to understand. As we've often commented, most people, when they practice spiritual life, they're doing it for themselves. And they may be pious and understand this is the topmost process. They may be understanding that I need to get out of this material world. They may be understanding that I'm not this body, that all this is temporary. They might even, very, very rarely, but they might even be desiring to get love of God. And that may be their purpose in their performance of their worship. And that's a very high thing. But Gaudiya Vaishnavism is something far, far beyond even that. In Gaudiya Vaishnavism, we hear that even higher than Premananda, than the ecstasy of prema, is Seva Ananda. And this is the mood of the gopis. This is the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself, who sees the ecstasy the gopis are getting, rendering service to him, and he becomes greedy, wanting to understand what it is that they're tasting, what kind of happiness are they getting. So he comes in the mood of a devotee to experience that Sevananda, even though he's already experiencing Premananda. But he wants to experience Sevananda. So this is a great contradiction. It's a very difficult thing to understand in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And we encourage everyone, you just chant Hare Krishna, chant, dance, and be happy. Everything's okay. And we don't make things so complicated. But as we progress, we should understand what it means to be a Gaudiya Vaishnava. We should understand the philosophy that Srila Prabhupada has come to give us, the teachings of Rupa Goswami and our previous acharyas. So in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Krishna explains about the nature of separation. From an external perspective, what is a separation? Someone who's practicing religion for some personal motivation, they can't understand. But Krishna explains, Pradyagyapi prema kritat prihanam vicheda davana lavegatonata santapa jatena daranta shoka Vishena gadham bhavataiva dukam tatapi samboga sukhad apistutaha sakopya nivacha tamo manoramaha pramoda rasi pranimata to dhruvam tatrasparit tad rasikaika vedyaha. He says that the gopis of Vrindavan are suffering. Pradyakyapi api prema krita priyanam. They have this intense prema. But vicheda davanala vegatonata. It's like they're in a forest fire. Just like an animal that's in the middle of a great forest and the fire is on all sides. That poor animal is suffering and dying in that fire. So also the gopis are dying in the forest fire of separation from me. And just like those animals, that they don't know where to go because the fire is in all directions, it's surrounding them. So also the gopis, they don't know where to get relief from this suffering. He says, but santapa jatena duranta shoka vishena gadam bhavataiva dukam. That pain, that suffering that they're experiencing, tatapi samboga sukhadapi stuta, it's greater. The suffering, the indescribable feelings of suffering the gopis are going through in separation from Krishna, those feelings of separation, tatapi samboga sukhadapi stuta, it's that they're feeling more happiness in that separation than when they directly meet me. This is an ocean of love. And he says, but only those persons who are rasakaika vedyaha, who understand, who are tasting personally the mellows of divine love, only they can understand it. And this is why, one of the reasons why Krishna sends Uddhava to Vrindavan. Because he wants Uddhava to learn about the love of the gopis. And one reason also, as we're hearing from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that Krishna's telling the gopis one external meaning is that you should meditate, you should fix your mind on me. But another deeper meaning Krishna's saying is that I know you're feeling separation, and if you fix your mind on me, then you'll be close to me and you won't feel separation. But a third meaning is there, Krishna's saying through Uddhava, to the gopis, that I'm feeling separation from you, and I want to see you. And I know the only way that I can be close to you is in the mind. So this indicates Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And therefore, this 47th chapter, the 10th canto, this Brahmara-Gita, is so very, very important for the devotees of Gauranga Mahaprabhu, because here in Jagannath Puri, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has described that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Gambhira, he's in the mood of Radharani when she's meeting Uddhava at the place known as Uddhava Keri, near to Nandagan, when the Brahmara-Gita is being spoken. Because Krishna, he wants to understand. He wants to come closer to the gopis. And so he evokes his feelings of separation, and then there's some meeting in the mind and in the heart. And this is the meeting in Kuruksetra, which culminates in Gaura Lila. Sanatana Goswami, he comments on this verse we were just speaking, these verses from the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. He says, Brahmando nivachas tasmad apyadikyena bhajanando. He says that this bliss of Brahman, Brahmananda, it's described as indescribable. The Upanishads describe this as yato vacho nivartanta aprapya manasasaha. That the Brahman, the bliss of Brahman, is so intense that it can't even be described. But that bliss of Brahman is attracting even the minds of the Brahmanandis, and therefore the bliss of bhajan is attracting even the minds of the Brahmanandis, like the four Kumaras, and therefore that bliss of bhajan is even greater than the bliss of Brahmananda. And when that bhajanananda becomes very, very intense, tatacha premanando, it becomes premananda. And that's the most indescribable. And then when that same premananda reaches its maximum limits in separation from one's beloved, that's the ultimately maha nirva chittama artaha. Sanatana Goswami comments, that's the last limit of something which cannot be described. And this is Gaura Lila. This is a meeting in Kurukshetra. And although this pain of separation, it appears externally as misery, it's actually the highest transcendental bliss. And Sanatana Goswami gives an example of this. Itatogni pratiyogi gana himadi sparashena. He says, just like you take some himadi, means some ice, you take some ice, and that ice, it's never been in touch with fire, it would have melted. But you touch sparshena, you touch that ice and it feels hot. You touch some very, very cold block of ice and it practically burns your hands and your feet, although it's very, very cold. But that feeling of fire, the feeling of hotness, it's just in the imagination. Because actually, that block of ice is very, very cold. So in the same way, Sanatana Goswami says that the misery that the devotee feels in separation is just in the mind. It's not actual. Because in actuality, it's the highest transcendental bliss. It's the highest happiness. Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshava Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada's sannyas guru and dear friend, he wrote a wonderful series of prayers called the Radha Vinod Bihari Tattvastakam, a series of prayers describing the tattva of his beloved deities, Sri Sri Radha Vinod Bihari. And he says in the second verse here, Sevya Sevaka Sambhoge Dvayur Beda Kuto Bhavet Vipralambe Tu Sarvasya Beda Sada Vivardate. That Krishna, who is known as Sevya, he takes service from the Sevaka. Sevya Sevaka Sambhoge. Srimati Radharani, who's a Sevak, she's always doing Seva to the Sevya. When Sambhoge, when that Sevya and Sevak, when they meet together, and they enjoy each other, then Dvayur Beda Kuto Bhavet. How can there be any separation between them? But vipralambe tu sarvasya bheda sada vivardate. But in that vipralamba, in that separation, so when Radha and Krishna is saying Seva Sevaka Sambhoge, when they're together, Dvaya Bheda Kutobhavet, there's no separation between them. How can there be any distinction? Radha and Krishna become one. And that Seva says, but Vipralambe tu sarvasya bheda sada vivardate. When there's some separation, their feelings are intensified. That Savior, Krishna, he's Bhokta Bhagavan. He's a personality who's always enjoying. And the Sevaka, who's Radha, is Bhogya. She's enjoyed. But at the time of their meeting, there's no beta, there's no difference between them. They're abeta, they're non-different. But in separation, that mood of beta, it increases in a very, very intense way. There's a very beautiful description of the glories of separation. Jiva Goswami comments on these verses too. He gives a series of verses that he quotes, speaking about how there's no separation in the aprakat lila. In the prakat lila, in the manifest lila, there's separation. But in the aprakat lila, when we don't see Krishna, although it looks like there's separation because we don't see him, in actuality, there is no separation. And he goes on to explain that even in the prakat manifestation, even when Krishna is manifested before us, the separation that appears is only external. Because actually the spurti is a direct meeting. And we spoke about that in our last session with a number of different letters that Krishna exchanged with the gopis of Braj, as described by Jiva Goswami and Gopal Champu. That spurti, which the gopis don't believe in, that we're seeing you, Krishna, but we think it's just some illusion. Because sometimes Radharani, she sees Govardhan Hill as Krishna. Oh, and she thinks it's Krishna, but then she realizes, no, it's not Krishna. It's a servant of Krishna. Sometimes she sees a dark tamal tree and she becomes mad. And she goes running to the tree and embraces the tree. Sometimes Radharani sees a dark cloud and she starts crying. There's a book we're working on by Krishna Kamal Goswami, who's an associate of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. The book's called Dibyon Mada. And it's a wonderful drama of Krishna Leela, speaking about Krishna's departure from Vrindavan and what happened to the gopis afterwards. And in there, it's describing Radharani's very intense feelings of separation. And in those feelings of separation is meaning, as Krishna is describing here. There's a meeting in the mind. And when Radharani sees at that time a dark cloud in the sky, she thinks, oh, Krishna's returned. Krishna's returned to Vrindavan. Oh, and she begins speaking to the cloud. It's complete madness. This is what you get if you want to become a Gaudiya Vaishnav. This is our ultimate goal. It's a sampradaya of great mad persons. And the maddest person is at the top of our sampradaya, Srimati Radharani. So she's speaking to that cloud, finally you've returned to me. And then all of a sudden the wind starts taking the cloud away. And then Radharani thinks, oh, what have I done? Now you're leaving me. And in this way she believes that cloud to be Krishna. So Jiva Goswami explains that Krishna had gone to Mathura on the request that he kill Kamsa. And Krishna is explaining in this verse to the gopis, to Uddhava, that still, because I have duties in Mathura, it's not appropriate that I come before you now. Still, I'm coming before you. Even though I'm far away from your eyes, but actually I'm here before you. I'm here just now, but I'm not happy remaining in Mathura. I'm doing all this because I want to meditate on you. And we know in the 19th chapter, the 10th canto, it's described, Gopinam Paramananda Asad Govinda Darshane, that the gopis are getting so much Paramananda from having darshan of Krishna. Kshanam Yuga Satam Miva Yasam Yena Vina Bhavat. That for them, even a moment without Krishna, Yugaitam Nimishena Chakshusha Pravishaitam, seemed like a great age, like 100 years or more. And then Jiva Goswami, in his Laghu Vaishnav Toshani, he goes on to cite a verse which we've spoken on several times recently, and we're looking forward to. It's from the 82nd chapter of the 10th canto, which is a meeting in Kurukshetra, which is the purpose of all of our talks. And it's the only verse that the gopis speak to Krishna. And this same verse is quoted and spoken by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu here in Jagannath Puri during the Rath Yatra. Ahushtate nalina naba padada vindam yogeshvarai hridi vichinja magada bodai sangsara kupa patitot tadanava geham jusham api manashyudiyat sadanaha. And we expressed some meaning of this elaborately in some of our previous kathas. I don't want to go there so much today. But the gopis in Kuruksetra, they're speaking about this meditation that Krishna is advising them through Uddhava. And they're saying that, my dear Lord, Ahushate Nalina Nava Padara Vindam, you're Bhagavan, you're God. We've heard about that now. Yogeshvarai Hridivichin Chimagada Bodhai. You're worshipped by the greatest of yogis and transcendentalists. But we can't do that. Sangsara kupa patitot tadanava because we're just ordinary household ladies. So how can we do that meditation? And our acharyas explain that this verse has such deep purport, such deep feeling in it. Just as Krishna is using double talk with the gopis, he's saying one thing but he means another thing. So the gopis are also using this parokshavad. They're saying one thing but they mean more and more deeper things. So in effect they're saying, oh, my dear Krishna, now you've left Vrindavan, you've gone to Dwarka, and you've become a big man. Now you're God. And you're trying to impress us with all these armies and warriors here at Kurukshetra. And so you're Nalina Naba Padada Vinda, your lotus feet are worshipped by everyone. You're Nalina Naba, you're in your navel, from your navel comes Lord Brahma. You're the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And you're speaking about doing yoga and meditation. But we can't do meditation because to do meditation, you have to have a peaceful mind. And our mind's not peaceful. Our mind is always disturbed, thinking about you. So we can't do that. So this is the nature of this separation. And then Jiva Goswami, in this wonderful purport, he goes on to quote another important verse. Naparayeham nidavadya samyujam swasadu krityam vibudaya sapiva yamabhajam durjaya geha shrinkalai samvishtayatadva pratiyatu sadhuna. This is a verse spoken by Krishna from the 32nd chapter of the 10th canto, where after leaving the gopis, Krishna, in plunging them in separation, Krishna comes back to them and he says, Naparayeham, I can't repay my debt to you. Even if you give me, even if I have a lifetime of Lord Brahma, because your love is niravadya samyujam. You don't want anything for yourself. It's spotless love. You've given up everything for me. You've cut everything, all your family life and everything. You don't want anything religious. Therefore, yapratiyatu sadhuna. Let your own glorious activities be your compensation. So these are all verses, although Jiva Goswami is not directly speaking about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, indirectly he's speaking about him. And for the followers of Gauranga Mahaprabhu, we can understand the deeper meaning of these verses that here in this 47th chapter, the 10th canto, Krishna is telling the gopis to meditate on him. And why is he doing this? Because he's plunging him in this separation. Why is he putting him in this separation? Because in this separation, we come closer together. And this is how I'm going to repay my debt to you. Napareham nidavadya samyujam. I don't know how to repay my debt. The only way that I can do so is if I also experience the separation. And therefore, in Ujjwal Nilamani, Navina Vipralambena, Sambhoga pushtam ashnute. It's described that Navina vipralambena, without vipralamba, without separation, Sambhoga pushtam ashnute. How can Sambhoga, union, become nourished? Kasayate hivastrado bhuyan eva abhivardate. Just like a cloth increases in beauty if you keep dyeing it with red color. So in the same way, the sambhog, it's not strong. It's not strong on its own. There are two embankments, as our Guru Maharaj would speak. In the Prema Dhara, or the river of Prem in Braj, there's two embankments, the Sambhog Tata and Vipralamba Tata, the embankment of union and the embankment of separation. And just as a river requires two embankments to carry the water, so also these two embankments are there within Braj. And Sanatana Goswami, he says that the gopis are replying to Krishna saying, look, don't cheat us. Don't come and tell us to meditate on you. We want to see you directly. Why are you waiting so long? And Krishna is saying to the gopis that no, I'm doing this because I want to meditate on you, to bring my mind closer to you. And Krishna is telling the gopis that you're giving up everything and you're concentrating your minds on me, but I'm not able to do that to the same extent. And that's why I'm staying in Mathura, because I'm just ashamed. If I have to come before you, I'm going to have to hang my head, because my love for you is not the same kind of love you have for me. Therefore, Krishna is saying, I don't know how to repay you, because your love for me is so very, very more intense than my love for you. And this is one reason why I'm staying in Mathura, because I'm ashamed that your love is so much more intense than my love for you. I'm promising yeyatamam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamyaham, that I reciprocate with everyone as they approach me. But I don't know how to reciprocate with you. Naparayeham. You just put myself in your debt. So I'm ashamed. And this is why I'm staying in Mathura, so that I can attain closeness with you. I can become one with you in the mind and in the heart. And this is the purpose of this BHRAMARA-GITA. This is the purport behind the meeting in Kurukshetra, and it's the purport behind Gaura Leela. And this is why we're spending so much time on this BHRAMARA-GITA. This is why we're speaking about the meeting in Kurukshetra, because we want to understand Gauranga Mahaprabhu. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. It's 8 o'clock here in Jagannath, Puri in India. And if anybody has any reflections or comments or anything, you can please share them. I want to thank Sanjay Prabhu and Brajabanita and Brinda Sundari and others for taking part today. But if anybody has any reflections or comments, this would be a good time. Anybody here in the room have anything? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and stop, and we'll be here again next week. Okay. So thank you all very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta Binda ki jai, Vancha Kalpadarubhascha, Kripa Sindhu Bheva cha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nanda Kori.